Welcome to the Therapist Take. We're going to talk about how our client stories have shaped us. So you definitely want to see this one, so don't go anywhere. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Josh.
I don't know why I said you will definitely don't want to miss this one. Like,
A lot of words.
I know.
Yeah.
It feels like I might have set us up to not deliver.
You overpromised.
Sorry.
Worry we're going to
I do that.
underdeliver.
I do that a lot. Like, I have to be careful when I'm talking about movies and shows I like. Cause
You
I'm
do
like,
that. That's true about
this movie's
movies
so great.
and
And then people
shows.
go and watch it and like, it wasn't that great. I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, I oversold it.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be.
But-
You're going to learn the art of subtlety,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. I have to just tell people it's not that great, but you should go watch it.
Or you could just say, "I really liked it."
Oh, I could do that.
You could.
Yeah. I like the extremes.
I know. I know that's that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Uh-huh.
Well.
Okay.
Okay. So we are excited today, and we're having a good time in here because we
Yes.
have our special guest with us that we will bring on in just a minute.
Yep.
Whitney Alexander is joining us today. So, but before we do that, just want to remind everybody to do the typical housekeeping things. Subscribe to our channel if you're watching this on YouTube. Like the video. Apparently that helps the algorithms. But also, just if you're listening to this on the audio platforms, just stop what you're doing for half a second and just give us a review. I think Whitney has given us a review
She
on
has.
our podcast platform. And then come back to the episode and listen to it and enjoy. And you only have to do that once.
Great.
You know?
Yeah.
And then once everybody has done it, I'll stop saying
Just
it.
stop saying it. Good.
So, so we are going to do an episode breakdown on this one. We haven't done it for the last couple
Right.
ones, but this one we do have a little bit more of a. We had a structure on the last ones too, but this one we can give away the farm a little bit.
Yeah.
We can let you know what's coming.
Yeah.
So, in talking about the stories, how our clients' stories have shaped us, we're going to start out with talking about when our clients' stories hit home, and that's something that happens to therapists all the time. Then we're going to move into the weight we carry, which Carrie and I talked about. This has nothing to do with body image.
Yeah. Right.
It could, but it'd be
It
the
could.
emotional version of it.
Right. Right.
But this is, we're going to talk about things like compassion fatigue and vicarious PTSD or vicarious trauma. And then, one of the questions that a lot of people might be wondering is, do we actually practice what we preach?
Sure.
So that'll be a fun one. Great. I'm looking forward to that.
I'm sure you are.
And then the last one is the human behind the role. So our therapists are human beings, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. So that's what we're doing.
Yep.
All right. So let me introduce our guest. Our guest is Whitney Alexander, who is a licensed marital family therapist. I believe you're an EMDR consultant as well. And she is the owner of the Warren Alexander Group in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And I put a link, and you can see it in her badge. When Hannah puts that on the screen, you'll be able to see her website link. And we'll also put that in the show notes and in the description. So you can go visit her website and see what she's all about. And we'll also link the other episodes that she has been a part of. You're our most reoccurring guest
That's right.
of all our guests.
You've
We love
returned
having
again.
you. And your episodes are some of the most popular ones that we have. So it works
I
for
don't
us
know.
in a lot of different ways. So without further ado, welcome, Whitney.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Yeah.
I told you I have a lot of cousins, so that's what I think the extra people watching.
Oh,
Just-
yeah.
Just a big
Yeah.
family,
Yeah.
really big family.
Well, that's good.
That's good.
You bring them with you.
So this episode is actually your brainchild in a way, right?
Well,
So
I mean, I've been loving the content you guys have been putting out with your podcast. The last couple ones have just been, like, I just have loved them. I've shared them with my clients. It ends up being a lot of things that there's a lot of questions around what it's like or what our experience is like as a therapist. I think for a lot of reasons, which is kind of why I wanted to do this, but I just thought it kind of fit with all the things you guys have really been addressing. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, it's probably going to be one of the most vulnerable discussions we've had, so we're going to have to self-regulate a little bit and breathe. So if you hear us going exactly
Like
what
that,
you're doing,
yeah.
okay, we're going to say this and put it out there.
If you hear us counting, box breathing.
Yeah. And if you were listening to this episode or watching it, and then all of a sudden you didn't finish it, and then you go back to it and it's not there all of a sudden,
Yeah. Hit me.
We had a vulnerability hangover.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
like-
decided.
We're just
that
done.
means we
Taking
were
that off.
reviewing it
Yeah.
and we're like, we can't put
I
this
can't
on.
do
We
that
can't
again.
do this.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
And so that means only 5 people will have seen it.
Only
and,
Whitney's cousins will
Right.
get to see
Only a
it.
couple of
Yeah.
the chosen cousins.
Yeah.
Right.
They did the dirty delete.
That's
is what they
right.
call it.
Dirty delete.
Well, we're so happy to have you do this again, and you can do
Yeah.
this. In my view, you could come down every Friday and do this
Yeah.
with us
We
if
got to
you
run
wanted
that by
to.
the big guy.
The
Yeah.
big guy, and I may have
Which
a
we
different
determined
opinion.
is not
did determine
Jesus.
It's
Not
not Jesus.
Jesus.
But in fact, my husband.
Can we talk about something for a second?
How my husband is like Jesus?
No. Carrie knows
Because you
about
just
this.
disagreed with that, so yeah.
So when we were discussing this episode through text,
Oh, here it is. I know what he's
I
gonna
sent
say.
this really long, funny text that had a whole song parody, and all I got was the ha-ha emoji from you, and then you just moved on
Straight
from it,
to
like,
business.
Oh, yeah.
and I feel like you did that on purpose.
No, I didn't do it on purpose, but I will tell you that, like, my interns consistently tell me that on text messages I am terrifying. Like, I think I just move into all business.
Oh yeah.
And when I'm all business, I'm all business, and there's no fooling around. There's no
Yeah.
fun. Like, I can't mix them very well, so they all are like, I'm really glad
Yeah.
we like meet with you during supervision, and we see you at other times, because if text Whitney is really terrifying.
Do you remember the thing I texted?
Something,
What?
something about, oh God.
I said,
what
"Are you
was it?
ready? Are you ready to come down to do
Yeah.
the podcast?" And you said, "Tell me when." And all I
Tell
heard was
me
Backstreet
when.
Boys.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Tell me why. Right? And so I created this whole chorus line, or this whole stanza of
And you were
Backstreet
singing
Boys.
it in your head, yes.
And I wrote
You
it
were
down
proud
on
of yourself
text. I
and
even
Yeah.
put a little
Yeah, a music
music
note, I saw
emoji.
that.
Yeah.
The other thing is, sometimes when I'm answering text messages, I'm doing like 7 other things.
Well, sure.
And they don't get my full
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
I might have been guilty of that.
And then
right there.
Yes.
her very next text was something like,
Ha.
"So when are we gonna do this?"
Yeah, so what date?
So
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
get this thing
Business,
scheduled. I
like
have
she just said.
It's almost
four
like in my
minutes
mind I
between
could see like
clients to
if,
put this on
yeah,
the schedule.
Yeah.
if we were doing that in person, I see myself doing my little song and dance with you, and then you just looking at me and going to Carrie, going, "So when are we doing this?" That's
probably-
exactly
That's
how
If
it
I was
happened.
in
probably
like
how it
business
was.
mode, that's exactly how it would be.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got my schedule book out,
Right,
so let's
right.
do
Yeah,
this.
that's right. Yeah, are we gonna do this? All right, we better do this then.
Okay, we did get
All right, so what we're going to do is that as we go through each point on the screen, if people are watching this, you're going to see the point that we're going to talk about, plus kind of an icebreaker question that we're going to talk, and that's how we're going to start out each section and move through this. And so the first thing we're going to talk about in terms of, before we, Hannah's probably already put it on the screen, but before we dive into the first one, I think it's important to acknowledge just the title of our episode, right? Like that, how our clients' stories have shaped us.
Yeah.
I think all of us, as we sit around, and of course there are times where we're at a loss and we're trying to figure out what to do, and then we have those clients that everybody has clients that they just look forward to showing up every week.
Yeah.
And there are clients that are more difficult to figure out their cases, but it's not usually because they're just not usually because of who they are as people, as more as it's just the cases are complicated. But I think if you've done this longer than 2 years, it's probably shaped you in some way, right? Impacted
I
you
don't
in
think
positive
we're
and
we're not the only profession.
right.
Right.
Like, I was watching like some reels the other night, and it was like a doctor interviewing other orthopedic surgeons, and they're like, "What would you never let your kid do based
Oh,
on
I
your
watched
job?"
those.
Oh,
things,
yeah.
And I'm like, yes, okay, so we're not the
No.
only ones that get
No,
shaped.
I heard doctors
that hate trampolines.
Yes,
and,
Right,
trampolines,
trampolines and
no
swimming
downhill
pools.
skiing.
Right.
Trampolines and swimming pools are the
Yeah.
big things I've heard of
Yeah.
those doctors, right? Yeah.
Certain kinds of candy they would
Right.
and wouldn't
Yeah.
let their kids eat because
Right.
of choking
So this is where
hazards.
you're kind of in the subtext of our titles: the good, the hard, and the haunting, right?
Yes.
The good, the hard, and the
You
haunting.
did it.
So I mean, we are impacted in. I think we're impacted in more. At least I'll speak for myself in more positive ways. Like what I've gained from and learned from my clients is far greater than the negative impacts it had on me. But there are some things that makes life harder for us, which we're going to get into all that. And then there are some things that are a little haunting for us at the same time. And so, because as we're going to talk about in closing, we are human beings doing this work. So, all right. So now let's get into the first one. When the client's story hits home. And so the ice-breaking question is, have you ever suddenly found yourself desperately needing to take your own advice? Like in session, like where you're hearing yourself talk and you're like, oh, I need to do that.
Yeah, sure.
Oh my gosh, it's annoying. Yeah, but definitely.
Yeah. And then you have that part of you that pushes that stuff aside that goes, yeah, but not right now.
Right.
You know,
Or
which
we're
is
supposed to be here for you
right,
right now.
right. It's
Right.
all about them, selfish, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's funny that you guys say that, because do you ever go, oh, what? Did I miss something just now? Because I was into my stuff
Yes.
for a second,
Yes.
right? And I know I have. That's kind of the trigger for me of knowing
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Oh, they just hit something for me because I just kind of left their stuff and went into mine.
Right. Something, it's like
You
a
know, and I'm
thought
like-
bubble. Yeah.
Do you ever feel like when that happens, like like something happens to your eyes, like
Oh, I'm sure
like
it's
did they
that.
see that? Did my
It
pupils
has
dilate
to
just
do
now?
that,
Or
right?
like,
Or you're looking off to one
Right,
side or the
yeah.
other.
Right. Right. Especially the clients that have been with you for a long time.
Oh,
They
yeah.
probably can sense it.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
and being an EMDR therapist, like watching people's eyes
Yeah.
is such a part of it. But
Right.
like, I just know when somebody had a thought that, carried
Oh,
them
yes, for sure.
somewhere.
Right.
And so I can't imagine that I don't do the exact same thing.
Right. Right.
Right.
Although we weren't, I mean, our training wasn't like a psychoanalyst in the sense that we're supposed to be, you're supposed to present complete neutrality, right? I mean, our training,
Right.
thank goodness, Whitney, there's no way, right? This is just not possible for you.
No. My face
But
says it all.
face says it all. So at least we could say that we've been trained and we work with what's happening with us. However, these are not two friends in the room with mutuality, right?
Right.
And so when it hits home and you have that thought of, oh, geez,
Like, oh, I really need to be doing some
That's
reflecting
my-
statements with my husband
Right,
these
right.
days. Or,
Yeah,
"Oh,
right,
that
right.
disagreement
I need
this
to-
morning
Yeah.
would
Right.
have been better served if
Yeah.
I had done what I just suggested you
Yeah.
might want to do.
yeah, hypocrite, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, my inner critic is real good at saying that, right? So when we have those moments, at least I don't feel like, I'm supposed to always be so neutral.
Right. Yeah. So in training in grad school and stuff, we talked about self-a-therapist, and they warned us about this, right? They said, like,
Yes.
you're going to be sitting across from someone, and then it's going to be like you're sitting across from yourself. And sometimes that's just one session. Sometimes it's one moment. Sometimes it's the whole darn time.
Yeah.
And it does kind of, require you to be effective. It kind of requires you to kind of process through that, because, and I think that's a growth opportunity for us.
Yeah, I do
I think
too.
of it as
Right.
accountability.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It is, if I am not being accountable for doing my own work, it will show in the room, right? The person that comes in that's either struggling with something you're struggling with, or is saying something that just keeps pulling you away. To be a good therapist, and I really want desperately to be there for my clients and be able to
Yeah,
be what
sure.
they need, you are held accountable to do your own work. And if you don't do it, your work will suffer, your clients will suffer, and that's just not okay for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did supervision last night at Oklahoma Christian.
You got it? Or were the
I
supervisors?
oversaw the
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
oversaw the clinic night. So people who aren't aware, a lot of training facilities like the one we went to and the one that I just referenced, when they train their therapists, they have clinic nights on site where in this case it's really different than what we had, by the way. Like we had like the one-way mirrors and had the headphones that we hooked up to. It was pitch black in the room. Theirs is like a room kind of like we're in, and there's a TV and it's being watched on cameras, and I basically work
Is
the.
it like Mystery Science Theater?
It's definitely really different than.
Oh, man, my
I
ADHD.
haven't decided yet which I like better, but
Yeah.
but and then but they still do the mid-session break. So when
Is
you're
there only one session going on at a time?
oh no,
Oh, so are they just flipping channels?
no, I flip them.
Oh,
I work it from a computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can put multiple ones on the screen and things like that. You can only hear one at a time.
It's like
but-
watching 4 sporting events
Yeah,
at once,
yeah.
right? It's like March Madness.
Yeah.
But they are still required to mid-session to come in and consult with their supervisor, which was me.
Halftime.
And this, I can't remember if it was in the break or before or after session when I was talking to one of the therapists, and she had a self-therapist moment where she's like, "This person's like me," and as I'm helping her with figure out what to do with this client, and I'm saying you kind of help her, look at patterns and things like that. I remembered she said this person's like me. She made no indication that she was in her stuff or anything like
Right.
that. But I stopped for a second and I'm like, are you wondering right now, like, oh, do I do that? Or is that, she goes, that's absolutely what I was doing right now. It's like, well, this will be an opportunity for you then. So,
Yeah.
and she did great, by the way.
Good.
So, so that's just, like that happens to us still to this day, I tell you one thing that happened. Does this ever happen to you guys where, okay, you're working with someone and their stuff is at least similar to your stuff, and then you're helping them, and then they're doing better than you on their stuff,
Again, accountability.
Yeah, yeah.
and you're a little like, man, that was good,
Writing that one down.
Glad you're getting help.
Your horse is ahead of mine.
That's never happened to me, Josh.
Yeah.
I know,
Whitney's
I know.
always the picture
I'm
of
already-
If you
I'm
both were
always
like,
winning
that's
on
never
that
happened to me.
one.
It's just a Josh thing.
Just
I guess.
Josh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think too, though, the stuff that, like you said, the story hits home doesn't always even have to be about, oh, that's familiar to
Right.
me,
Right.
right? I've lived that, I've walked that path. Sometimes it's like, it's just a commonality of a feeling experience or some kind of, inner struggle. And so
Yeah.
I think that a lot of new clinicians are, trying to identify the tough stuff, or maybe even the clients or populations that they don't think they would do well with. But there's no way to think I won't have these moments.
Well, and if I can dive even deeper, a theme that I keep seeing that really, like, it could come up with any story. It's not even a story. It's a way of living life. Is there has been so much lately of what I would consider to be really strong. They're mostly women that I'm working with. Strong women who are tired of being strong, right? And so when we're connecting to this concept of like, okay, what's, in EMDR, we identify the negative cognition and the positive cognition. Like, they can very easily say, I am strong, I can handle this. That's not the trauma right now.
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh, like that one is just like right there. Like,
Right.
I don't know, like it really, again, it holds you accountable. You hold space for that, you recognize
Right.
it, and it's that story hits home.
Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of that same type of work with partners that have been, betrayed through some form of infidelity. Where Carrie and I have often talked about how, they're some of the strongest women we've ever met on this planet. But kind of the thing that we address with them is that what that means is being weak and injured is not in your wheelhouse.
That's right. And you don't know what to do
And
with
now's
this.
and
Paralyzing.
the time calls for you to be injured, and hurt. And it's just so hard, and
Well, and I think
And so-
sometimes it's what I see a lot of times is where's my support? Who's there for me?
Right.
And again, as a working mom, as somebody who does not live in the same town as any of, grandparents or anything like that, you just, it really hits home. Like, you really have to do your work around. I get all of that. How have I done the work to walk myself through what's on the
Yeah.
other side, so that when they are talking through those things,
Yeah.
you're not like, oh my god.
well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, like, in that I honestly, and
I told you it was going to be vulnerable.
this is what, uh, there, in my view, from my very short time on this planet, and very
Yes,
young,
Very young.
I don't know anybody who works harder than women as a whole on this. And I used to say that about my dad. My dad is one of the hardest working people I've ever met. Growing up, I mean, the guy was just a machine. But my mom was too. And then when I got married, I'm like, I can't even get close to outworking my wife. Like, so I don't even try now.
Sure
You've
she's
let
real happy
yourself
about
off that hook. Yeah.
Carrie, like, can work me into the ground, And but I was on the phone with my mom the other day, and I was talking about my sister, and I was like, man, I really do think like she probably takes the crown. She is probably the hardest working person I've ever met in my life. That girl is always doing something,
And when you've done the work, I think from the outside looking in, if you haven't done the work, it's like, well, you're strong enough, you can handle it. And you think that is the intervention to tie a person to, and that
And
is
that's
not
the opposite.
even close
Right.
to
It's
it.
actually,
I know.
it's actually now.
Yeah.
Now it's almost like it's
Yeah,
against
I know
me.
I can handle it, and I'm
Yeah.
resentful that I've had to handle it, and I'm
Yeah.
resentful that
Yeah.
there's that
Brene
village
Brown
is not
talks a
there
lot
for
about
me.
that,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so
She tells that story about like how I think when she was having her first book signing, and I think it was a story related about how she started to actually sample in her research, include men in her samples, because she said she had a dad that showed up at the book signing,
yes,
and
that's convenient,
and he said
right?
like right
Yeah.
when he said that's convenient that you only sample women, and then he said, you see those three girls over there or something like that, I'd rather die on top
They'd
of my
rather
white.
me die on my
Oh, really?
white
So
horse.
okay.
Yes, they would rather me die on my white horse
Than to see me
than
fall off
to
of
see
it.
me be vulnerable to fall off of it.
Right.
And that one doesn't dovetail
Yeah.
with my issues, but I get it.
Right.
Right.
Well, she talks about how for women they have to deal with a lot of things. Like there are so many different things coming at them. And then on top of that, you got to deal with it with a smile on your face, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, and men have to deal with this one thing, this white horse phenomenon. And and the reason why I chuckle at it is I'm like, it's a big thing,
It's a big
guys.
horse.
Like our one thing is huge.
It is.
Like
It is.
it
And
is
the more
huge.
you
but-
Yeah.
the more you have, like you don't have to work to like get yourself to what you need to do to help that client.
Right.
The easier it is to put our therapist hats on. But
Yeah.
today, the reason I kind of pitched this to Josh was just a recognition that if it fits with something that we ourselves are struggling with, and or we are just struggling, period, it is harder to get to what you guys talked about in the last episode. All those things that we have
Noticing
to
all those
hold
things. Yeah.
to be a good therapist.
Right. Yeah.
Very true.
100%. Yeah.
Very true.
Good. Okay, well, let's get to the second one. This is the weight we carry, and we're going to talk about on this one, vicarious trauma and compassion fatigue. So here's the question. Our icebreaker question is, what is your go-to guilty pleasure after a long day of heavy sessions? Who wants to go first?
I disappear into my room and put a book on my headphones.
Okay.
Oh, that is so healthy.
That is pretty
I
healthy.
don't know if the big guy would agree,
I love that we just
or my husband.
Jesus says, "What are you listening to?"
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I love to listen to audiobooks, and when I've just been
Yeah.
I don't know, I've been holding space for people all day, and I'm exhausted. I can't even converse very well about normal things. I kind of need to just,
Yeah.
check out.
yeah.
Yeah. I like your checkout one though.
I mean, you can try it. It's
Mine's
good
TV
stuff.
and it's TV and food, but particularly chips.
Oh yeah,
Salty,
salty. huh?
delish. What's the favorite chip?
Don't make me do this.
Please.
This is too
mine,
vulnerable.
Mine is nacho cheese Doritos.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Well, if
Oh, or salt and
It's-
vinegar.
my
it's
wife loves
going.
salt and vinegar. See, that sounds more grown up though. That's a grown up. The
What?
Cape Cod salt and vinegar
Yeah, but
chips.
you
and
can't
the
eat
big-
too many. It'll inside of
No,
your
I'm
mouth
like-
goes
Starts to-
completely
yes,
raw.
you
It
I
just
want
changes.
Doritos and
Holes are just
salsa.
sticking out.
Ooh, that sounds good
Doritos
though.
and
Yeah,
salsa.
Yeah.
no, but if I had to pick, like if I had my choice, it would be, because usually I just go to watch if there's something in the cabinet, Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
Oh
Oh, that's
boy.
lovely. I feel like that's grown up.
Yeah. But one thing I've had to do because my kids,
Do you have to hide them?
it doesn't work.
oh.
They
No,
find
they
them,
find 'em.
right?
See,
So I had to
my
pick
dad had
something they don't
Fruit
like,
Loops.
so I went with,
Yeah, what'd you pick? Takis?
this is the vulnerable part.
Oh,
No,
no.
talkie. I can't do it.
Okay.
My wife goes, you can't do, she's like, I said, we need to stop eating chips. We need to stop buying them. She's like, well, what if I just bought Takis? I was like, I thought I wouldn't eat them, but I was in here on the
Pull
couch.
us-
And
pull us
I ain't
hard.
lying. I'm not lying. I
believe
went to
you.
do my TV thing, and I went to sit on the couch, did not have any chips, and under the cushion was my son had just been in there,
Oh no.
and he left his Takis in there, and I'm like,
no.
huh, I'm eating these, and they were blue, like look
Yeah,
like.
I mean that's
There's-
disgusting.
there's nothing
that's
real
not
in it.
allowed in
There's
Europe,
nothing
I
real.
I was like,
No.
it's the only
Europe does
chip
not
we
say
got.
okay, blue
Only
Takis.
American
So what I settled on though that none of them like are pork grinds,
I love pork rinds.
Ugh.
but I'll only do it with
Oh my
queso.
God. No, I love
I can't
it.
do them by
I
themselves.
can't eat either
but-
of
I
those.
used to eat
But
them
I'm
with
like,
guacamole.
I'm not crazy about them, but I'm like,
But neither
the
are
kids
they.
won't touch them.
Yeah. It's
So
the only thing you have.
yeah,
That's
especially
why
when
I
you tell
started
them
doing
what they're actually
audiobooks,
made from
because
pig
if I
skins.
watch TV, then they
Yeah.
flock to me,
Yeah.
and then I'd have to like
Explain
edit
what
it,
you're watching.
Right?
Right.
No,
Well, you come in, you got earphones
anything
in,
I
you're
watch
like,
with naughty
hear
words.
you.
They're like, you're
Oh.
not supposed to say that. So I just put my headphones in, and they don't know what I'm listening
That's
to.
true.
They can't listen to it.
They're
It's
not
my
literally not a
own-
part.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's my own thing. So
I
it's
know.
funny that we had to change our guilty pleasures so that our children don't ruin them.
Don't take them from you. I know. That is
Carrie,
true.
what's yours?
Well, I mean, I told Josh earlier, a wine, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that's not during the week. So I do the same thing with screens, though, but I like to put something on the television that I don't have to pay too much
Yes.
attention to, you know?
Yeah, my
So
wife does
a
that too.
sporting event that I'm not that interested
Mm-hmm.
in, or a show that I've seen, or
Mm-hmm.
news that's not too intense.
Mm-hmm.
And then after about 8:30, 9, that's when I start playing Tetris on my phone.
Oh,
I
there
love
it is.
Tetris.
Yeah, I love Tetris. I played it on my Game Boy that I got when I was
Yes.
10, you
Yeah,
know?
black and white too.
Black
probably,
and
huh?
white. And I really like, I mean, and it's just a way I'm doing things, but I'm not doing
Yeah.
anything. And I'm in a little corner and I have a blanket and a pillow and
I mean, it's almost hard after. Like sometimes I have 8 session days, so I'll see people.
Yeah, me- Josh
8
and I too.
sessions, and then my lunch is
Yeah.
a working lunch.
Yeah,
like
sure.
I do
Yeah.
Write your notes,
consultation
return
and
your-
no
oh.
supervision during
Yeah.
lunch. No, I write my notes right after session.
Oh.
4 minutes done.
Oh wow, you're,
on
she is
top of it. Even
the poster
Efficient.
child of health.
No, I don't.
Mental
That's
health.
not health. That's just
Right.
efficiency. That's survival.
That's also
survival
But like
efficiency.
I can't even hold like my husband will just be like trying
Mm-hmm.
to have a normal conversation like guess what somebody told me today. I'm like like my headphones are in. Oh wait, let me
Yeah.
push pause on this
Oh,
book.
and you're annoyed to press pause. Yeah.
What did they say? You know, like they don't. You know, my clients don't see
Like
that.
I'm playing Minesweep.
Yeah, God.
Remember that one?
No, of course. Can see it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Oh,
don't.
you made me hit a
I mean,
bomb.
I do sometimes don't want to be using those things to chill
Yeah.
out, right? I mean, reading a book.
yeah.
I can't read a book to chill out. I need to read. I am engaged when I'm reading a
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
So this is the opposite of that.
Yes, you need all that turned
Yes,
off.
I need
get
all of that turned off. I can read a book on the weekends.
I am so story driven. I don't. Maybe that's why I am a
I
therapist.
listen, but listen, when I exercise and when I'm getting ready, I'm always listening to a book or a
Gotcha.
podcast.
See, I like music then.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Right.
Same.
stories for sure as that's my
Chill.
thing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
different.
Well, to be completely vulnerable, in grad school, Rock of Love was my guilty
Rock of
pleasure.
Love,
Yeah.
that is a
Remember
blast
that?
from the past.
That is a
That-
blast
Bret
from the
Michaels.
past. Bret
I
Michaels.
have
of
so
course.
many friends that watch like what do they call that? Reality TV.
Oh yeah.
And that they say the same thing. That's just my turn my
Yeah.
brain
I
off.
can't do it anymore.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
I follow the story too
Like
much.
Real Housewives or
It
stuff
winds
like-
me up.
Yeah.
I need to wind down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so we're talking about this because our sessions, we have some heavy days. Many times I come home and I'll just tell my wife, it's like I just had a rough day or a rough ending to my day based upon just, you get, 2 or 3 clients back to back or, they're all in crises or
Right.
it's just you're doing some deep trauma work or,
Yeah.
and, there's some clients have some amazing stories, but a lot of what makes them so amazing is the resiliency from the trauma they bounce back
Yeah.
from,
Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
and that they carry with them. And so there is a something we call compassion fatigue, which I think people listening to this probably can get a good idea what that means. You know, a lot of healthcare providers, not just in the mental health world, deal with this. You know,
Yeah.
nurses.
Yeah, right.
I know when I did my internship at the cancer center, you know, we did I did a compassion fatigue group for the nurses.
Healthcare workers,
Right,
yeah.
yeah. And so every now and then the docs would show up. Mainly it was, you know, the nurses are the ones nursing. You
Well,
know,
they're
they're
in it
tending.
all the
Yeah.
time.
Right. But the one I really want to get you guys' thoughts on is the vicarious trauma one, because you know, I think I deal with that, you know, and I feel like I know how it manifests. My wife knows, and like this whole, the self-awareness thing is huge, you know, the episode 10 is what I say, Whitney's episode, first one she was here on.
Yes.
It's a great episode. Go watch it. But how do you guys see it manifesting for you? Like, the way you see the world is a little bit different,
Definitely. Yeah. How I interact with some systems is different.
right?
The legal system being in a good example, like just this awareness of how there's some blind spots based on experiences.
Right.
And are there things, like, I was just thinking, like, are there things as a therapist that may make different choices than a lot of other people for our kids? And I worked primarily with like troubled teens early in my, and so I was always like, I don't know if I'm going to let my kids go to the movies, because the kids were all lying at the very beginning of my career and saying we're going to the movies, and then they were engaging in these things that would make any parent's toes curl.
Sure,
So I'm
sure.
just like, listen, if I let my kids go to the movies, I'm just gonna like straight up
Sit in the
like
back
kick
row.
open the door about halfway through and be like, Alexander boys,
Right.
who wants
Yeah.
some Twizzlers? You know, just checking.
Just checking. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Do you wanna
Well,
answer?
one thing I always say is that, and you've probably heard me say this, is like, for therapists, like, the things that never happen every day in our lives.
Yes.
Right. And so if people can imagine that, like, that it's not every day someone, you know, gets hit by a car, you know, walking or
Yeah,
something,
very
or
much so. Yeah.
you know, I'm trying to stay
Yeah.
away from super tragic examples, because there definitely are some. We mentioned swimming pools and trampolines. You know, it's not every day someone loses a child.
Right.
It's
Right.
not every day someone's partner dies, or someone's mom or dad dies when they're still in their 20s or their
Right.
30s, right?
That's right.
But in our world, these are every day.
Every day,
So if you think about that, like, and how our brains might be reading that, is that the world might be much more dangerous than it actually is, and
Well-
if we don't recognize that,
Get
If
stuck
I
in
could
it.
take a tiny IFS
Sure.
detour, I think it informs our managing, right? It informs our managers. We develop things that we do differently. You know, I'm thinking my sister is a surgeon, and she primarily works with cancer survivors, and she has always been like, she takes really great vacations. Like, that is her managing. She's like, life is not, you know, like, we think we're all afforded a long life, and she's like, I see every day that
Sure.
that doesn't happen. And one of
Yeah.
her managing strategies is she takes fantastic, amazing vacations, which again, that's awesome. What?
say we take less.
Right, I know we do less, but like, that's an example of like how we manage
Yeah.
some of the weight that we carry from our jobs.
Right.
Sure. Sure.
But like, to that point, like, one of the things I say, like, how it's impacted me, you know, and speaking of vacations, you know, like, if we were gonna take the kids to the lake, you know, all I see in the beginning is just all the bad things that can happen.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
And I have to really work at regulating that.
Yeah.
And so when I say, like, we take less vacations, you know, it's because, you know, let's just stay
Let's be safe.
Safe.
and controlled.
Safe
And
zones.
the
and even,
idea
like-
of staycations
Oh, yeah,
sounds
that
much more appealing to me than it ever has before in my life.
I remember talking about riding the bus with my husband, and I'm like, are you joking? that we would let our kids ride the bus? He goes, yeah, I had a great time riding the bus. All I can think of are all the bullying stories and
Yeah,
all of the
from the
terrible
bus.
Sure.
stories that kids trace back to being on the friggin' bus.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I'm like, my child will
the
not
bus
ride
is
a
evil,
bus.
Yeah.
evil beast.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
and I'm
yeah.
sure there were wonderful
Yeah.
experiences with lots of people,
Right.
i.e., even
Right.
the
Well,
person
the
I
one-
was talking to.
The one for me is that to this, which I don't have to do it anymore because my kids are older now, but the whole time through, I had to just let my wife do this part.
I know what you're gonna say.
And it
We
was
talked about it.
babysitters.
Yeah, that's one of the
Yes.
hardest for me, too.
Female babysitters. I can't tell you how many grown men older than me, and I'm 45 years old, that have sat across from me sobbing from the abuse
Oh, yeah.
of female babysitters.
That's right.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so
Yeah.
I can't do
can't
it.
be objective here.
you're just gonna have to do it because I get that when it comes to that particular thing, I go completely irrational.
Yeah.
The
with it.
trauma, I mean,
Yeah.
the vicarious trauma is real.
Yeah.
That
in
is
those
real.
cases.
That's what you can feel it too.
That's
Of like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'll just stay home. I'll
That's
just
right.
work my schedule around grandma.
That's
We're
right.
just.
Are there anything that you guys know clinically that you, if it comes across your table, you just can't see it. You just can't do it, not because of the nature of whatever the issue is, but because of the trauma that's likely
Yeah.
involved
Oh,
with
For
it.
me, it's where I'm at the moment. Like, it may not be the same thing in 2016 that it is in 2026.
Sure.
Right. So, and I hope what that means is, given enough time, I'm hoping that I
through.
could have worked through some of that. But I remember somebody asked me to process, like, to take a case that where the child in question that had something happen to them was literally the exact age of my baby, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I would really want to help you, but I would just imagine that all day long being my kid, and
Yeah.
I
Yep.
cannot. But I could probably do it today because I don't have an
A
infant
baby.
anymore.
Yeah.
You're right.
I mean, I really stopped seeing kids once I got to be a parent because I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't separate myself and my kids from the stuff that
Yeah.
I was where I just couldn't. It was too heavy. Even if technically my caseload, the family case doesn't look as trauma based as the individual. I just couldn't, and so that's when I
Yeah.
really did stop. It was
And
just
again,
too
you
much.
may circle back to it.
Yeah, I
at
mean,
some point.
if
You
I
never
don't
know.
now it's because I've just taken a specialty a different
Sure.
direction. Before it was like, oh, I just can't anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can't.
Yeah, I'm the same way as do with kids, but for me, it's specifically someone coming in because they lost a child.
Right.
Like when we're working on something else and that's part of the story, for some reason, like I can do that better. But when it's this raw, like this is the thing, like I still to this day, I can't do it. And I particularly remember one client where. And he was, and two, when they're really good storytellers, like it was, as soon as that session was over, I just started sobbing. I just
Yeah.
couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Like it just was one of the most, in some ways, one of the most beautiful stories I've ever heard. About losing a child, and not that losing a child is beautiful, but just the last moments with the child, and then, but also obviously one of the most tragic and heartbreaking things. And so from that point forward, like anytime someone says, hey, can you work with this person
They're
lost a
dealing with
child, and
this.
obviously you lose a child, it's usually pretty tragic, right? I mean, it's not like, if someone, an adult dies and you find out they're 90,
Right.
it's what we call a normative loss, right, versus a non-normative
Yeah.
loss, and so our brains can accept that a little easier. So, anyways, yeah, but those are for people listening. I mean, yeah, we carry that, and I tell students coming in, people are asking about being a therapist, like don't, we joke around too, like I'm in a female-dominated profession. I always joke around about, that I had to really embrace my inner woman, but, and this isn't to say that, men are strong and women are weak, but in terms of, I don't know if it's an antidote or, a remedy to like toxic male masculinity. So any guys listening to this out there, this is by far one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
Well, we want to fix.
I grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
Right? We want to fix, right? All of us want to
Yeah.
fix, but I think
Yeah.
men get more connected to their fixer parts because their emotions and
Right.
hanging with emotions aren't as, aren't as
Rewarded
developed.
and
Yeah.
arts established.
And so it's the hardest ones we carry are the ones where the fix is just being present and letting our clients know they're not alone in the struggle. Like
Right.
I always tell people, we need two things in childhood. We need safety and we need nurturing. And if we don't get both of those things, there will be some work that has to be done. And so sometimes it's the nurturing piece that I'm providing in that moment, and there is nothing else. There's nothing I can say or do to make that situation any better. And I have to sit with the powerlessness of it, of my feelings and their feelings, and that's what makes people want to jump into advice giving, right? Well, have you tried? Have you looked at? Have you? These people are wise people. They've done all of that. They are not asking you to come up with a solution for what to do with their problem.
Right.
They're sharing their pain, and we just have to be in it. And that is hard when you're doing that for multiple hours a day.
Right, 100%. Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about the third one. So the third point, or it's really a question, is do we practice what we preach? So, but let's answer the question that I have for the icebreaker question. So on a scale from 1 to Brene Brown, how vulnerable are you really in your relationships?
Personal relationships.
Aren't they all personal?
Okay,
in
so
some
I was
way?
really doing a
Right.
lot of thinking about this, Josh. You
Yeah.
did not send me these questions, but I
I
was
did not. I
thinking-
told Carrie, I said,
Yeah.
Whitney's the only one who's not going to see
getting
these ahead of
hot.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, because I was thinking
Yeah.
about vulnerability,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know if you've had an Enneagram one of these, but I'm an 8, and we don't like vulnerability.
I know.
So as a therapist, I've had to learn the importance of vulnerability and practice vulnerability. But I can tell you, even in my personality, if I know there's a reason, like a good reason to do vulnerability, like you've linked the research to me, it's a lot easier for me to do.
Right.
But if it's just being vulnerable for the sake of being vulnerable,
Yeah.
I'm out.
Your face
Don't
gave
Yeah,
it
but
away
why?
before the words.
Why
That's
be so vulnerable for the sake of it, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like there's no
why?
connection involved in it.
Right.
You know,
There's no
like, so
release
I guess I'm
involved.
definitely not at Brene Brown status. So I'm gonna give myself maybe a 5.
Oh, okay.
I know. I don't think I'm at Brene. I'm not a Brene. From 1 to Brene Brown, I'm not Brene Brown either. Yeah, I think though it's part of the training and of the job, and then the training as a mother
Yeah.
of so much of what I think, feel, want, need, just like later. I mean,
I don't have time for this.
You're still probably at the stage, Whitney, where you don't eat a hot dinner, right?
What's that?
You eventually do, I promise you.
okay,
You'll get
okay.
there. You'll get there. But it's years, So I may be hungry, but it doesn't matter because, my daughter, who can never put a single piece of food warmer than room temperature in her mouth without losing her mind, you got to get that worked out. The boy needs his hot, like just the way it is. And so you've learned just to kind of, you don't even notice
Well,
as
it's
much
survival
anymore.
is
It
not
is.
connected with very well with vulnerability.
With vulnerability, right? Because you're
Yeah.
tuned the dial down instead of tuning in.
I mean, we can say that,
Yeah.
but I've had lots of relationships before motherhood, and I can also say that, like, I can do it. I know that I can do it. But the best way to sell vulnerability to me
To an
is
8.
to recognize that there is a payoff for it.
Okay.
And if I can remember and connect with the payoff for it, I can do it a
Do you
lot
have
better.
you have something dangling out there, like
Yes,
there.
like, oh, that
Yeah.
will help blank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do it. I just don't do it very often.
Yeah.
And
right?
it can be about time, it can
Oh,
be about energy.
I just like the feeling of almost getting hurt.
You do, yeah, that feels great.
But
Just putting myself out there.
but I mean, in some ways though, like I like being funny. I like thinking of the next joke to tell, and sometimes they're just not funny, and I'm like, oh, but I'm like, it's worth the risk though, like, because I know that something's going to land at some point.
So you're saying
it's going to be.
You're risky.
you're more
You're
Brene
very
Brown? Is that
vulnerable.
what you're saying? From
You're
one
like
to
a
No,
Brene?
so
to
here's
Brene?
I was thinking about this, like this is we're kind of, I guess this could be like a meta discussion in a way, but For me, it's the being vulnerable is not being vulnerable. Like that's the
like
hard
holding the
thing for me.
boundaries, keeping it
Right.
together,
It's like
being
being
profesh.
okay that I didn't get acknowledged on something, being okay.
Not
And
always having to.
in my, as I've
Yeah,
gotten
sure.
older, like I've recognized this about myself um, you know, and there's a lot of middle child stuff in there,
Sure.
and where, I just have learned to just be okay in silence and in quiet, and I look forward to it. Like if my wife takes my kids out of town, like I often don't make plans. And
Oh,
that was
for
never like me.
sure. Yeah.
Like I used to
Really?
like
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, oh man, yeah, I gotta go hang
What
with
if
some
somebody doesn't
friends.
respond to your really funny text message with the kind of energy that it
Well,
deserved?
you know what I did?
What did you
Made a
do?
joke out of it. I took it to Carrie. Said, "You wouldn't believe what Whitney did." And
Yeah.
guess what Carrie gave me?
The face?
The laughter.
The
Like, validation.
validation.
Yeah, she.
I
Because you know
did.
what? It was funny. You
It
were
was funny.
funny.
It was.
Yeah.
It was funny. It was. I just
The
was
whole
all
situation was
business.
funny.
All
Yeah.
Yes.
business.
So for me, like it's learning to back it up a little bit into like it's okay that I, can be still, can listen, and to not say the thing that I think is going to be hilarious.
But do you think hilarious is vulnerability? Like that's your vulnerability.
I think vulnerability
Like
means
mine,
doing
what
something that doesn't
hilarious for
come
me is
easy.
the opposite
Well,
of
I'm not.
vulnerability.
First of all, let's clarify for everybody, okay? I am not saying I'm a hilarious person. I like to try,
Yeah. But if
but
I'm trying, I'm being not
Not
vulnerable.
vulnerable.
That's mine.
Right.
Right. So
That's a
that's what I'm
manager.
saying.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like for me, being vulnerable is really doing a thing that doesn't come easy for you, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I'm not saying being
So
funny
not
comes easy,
throwing the
but
joke out there,
right,
not
trying to
changing
be
the
funny
tenor
comes
of the
easy for me.
conversation. Yeah, that makes
Exactly.
sense.
And I've
Yeah.
done much better about that in probably the last decade, learning to be okay.
I'm sure
and
your kids appreciate that.
yeah.
See,
We,
that was me being unvulnerable, making a joke.
we talk about our kids
Clock it
a
up.
lot and what
They're
it's
like,
like
they
to
do
be.
not want you to be
Yeah,
funny.
what our poor kids have
Yeah.
to
Our
poor
go
kids
through.
have to
They're
be-
I've
like,
told
"No,
mine.
thank you."
I said, I'm so sorry. I know it's gotta
You
be hard
sounded
to be my
surprised
kid.
when I rated myself at a 5, by the way.
Um, no, I'm not surprised. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
because I think
Yeah.
that I don't know if any of us could rate ourselves above that. To
Yeah.
be honest with you,
Yeah, I
like
think that's fair.
because I think you probably really need to get our spouses in here and ask them
Right.
how
They'll be like,
vulnerable they feel like
Yeah.
we are.
Ones. Yeah.
depends on the day.
Yeah.
So I think
Depends on
I
the
would say
season.
like I think we're all like we're vulnerable enough. I mean, I think we
Hopefully.
all we have valuable relationships in our lives, valuable long-term relationships, or our committed relationships with our spouses, but also like with each other.
Yeah.
For example, I don't worry about you guys not liking me someday. I feel like that we have.
I
we've-
gave
how
him
long
the
have we known
same
each
look
other?
just
Okay,
so
yeah,
you know.
he does too.
We've known
Worry
each other
about
for
that.
20 years.
Yeah,
now,
a
or
long
a long
time.
time.
I know. Well,
Yep.
I was just reflecting,
know?
like even as we were setting up, we were kind of consulting with another therapist, and I think we were all being like open and vulnerable
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
while they were talking about some issue that they're navigating. And you're right, not one time in there did I think these people are gonna judge me because I conceptualize or I engage in this particular thing differently than they might.
I've told my clients about the time when my wife and I had really dark time in our marriage,
Sure.
and therapists go through it too,
And what I tell
Sure.
people is, as long as you're not in the middle of going through it,
right, exactly.
that's not what we share. So I'm not sharing
Right.
with my clients.
Oops.
I'm in the middle.
No, Josh.
I'm in the middle of
Self-therapist
a
moment.
real my marriage is on the rocks right now. So I'm not the best person for you. It can be a year ago or 2 years ago, like on the outside of it. But
Sure.
we didn't hit this on when our client stories hit home. But I wanted to share like this. Like, sometimes you're just going through personal tragedy, and it's not even that their story hits you, it's that you are just so cluttered in your headspace that it's very hard
You're just in it.
to make space for
Yeah.
some things. And it's not even really anything they say. And you can't stop being a human being.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot stop the fact that I have a life and bad things sometimes happen to me, or sad
yeah.
things sometimes
Sure.
happen to me.
But then we got to go enter
yeah,
into a space and
that's
help
right. I just have to
other people. Right.
compartmentalize as much as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think the harder it is for us to do that, I like that. I
I
think
think you learn so much.
I think in some
Oh,
ways
for
we become more
sure, yeah.
effective with it and like more comfortable knowing how to do it. But but like the fact that I know that I can't just go out of sight, out of mind like I used to do when I was like in my 20s. Used to pride myself on that as a therapist. Like I used to even tell people ask me how do I do this job. They're like, well, when you come to see me, you put the ball in my court. When you leave, I put it in your court. And basically, I don't think about you.
Yeah.
It's not that way anymore.
No.
No, it's not that way.
Too much of life has happened to me.
Yep.
I think about my clients all the time, and but I like that. I like that I'm not that
I
that
think they like it too. I don't know. Maybe they
do too.
don't.
Well, no, I think it to me, it's the why that this is not just a job. This is
Right.
a career and a calling, right? Again, not to make it bigger than it is, but I think making meaning out of hard things is the only way you deal with the hard
know.
things. And so the gift of being in those hard spaces with people is a gift for both,
Yeah.
And so a lot of times clients will say things like, oh, this is too much, this is too hard. And I'm not just being dishonest when I say, no, it's not.
Yeah.
I
Right?
think they worry so much about weighing us down.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
is
some
the-
of them do.
Sure.
Yeah.
So many of them are like,
Sure.
I'm not doing it, especially in EMDR. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, I
it's so
know. I'm
weird.
not doing
Everybody
it
goes through the
right.
I'm not doing it
I'm
right.
not
Every
doing it
single person
right.
says
If
that.
if
yeah.
you're listening to this and you're doing EMDR
Yeah.
and you're going, I sometimes wonder if I'm doing it wrong.
Just say that.
Everybody
Just say it.
does
and
that.
everybody says it.
thinks
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And I will
Yeah.
tell you if you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then they're like, well, is what I'm sharing with them too heavy for them? I even worried about doing this episode with you because I think there's that subset of the people that are like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, do they, is my story too heavy for them?
Sure.
And again, I want it to be an understanding that like, it's usually, hi, it's me, I'm the problem, it's me. Like if something is heavy, it's not because of your
You,
story.
right.
It's because of work that I need to
Sure.
do. It's because of something
Sure.
I need to do in my life.
Sure.
And again, the accountability of this career to make me keep growing, to
Yeah.
make me keep stepping forward, I think is like no other one that's out there.
Yeah.
So I want our clients to understand nothing they tell me is something that I can't handle, but I am going to have to hold myself accountable and practice what I preach.
Yeah.
Right? Like I have to practice what I
Yeah.
preach. I have to do mindfulness. I have to do containment. I have to do a self-care routine.
Boatload of self-care.
Where would you put yourself for you guys on the practice of what you preach? Like I would rate myself pretty high
I
on
would
the
too.
practice.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty good
I'm like a
about this.
9-10,
I'm
I
a
feel like.
self-care.
I call
because-
it militant self-care. Like I will
Militant,
not
okay.
compromise unless it is
Rigorous.
Here's why I
Nice.
think like most therapists are probably going to rate themselves high on that is because we're not in there just tossing advice out.
right.
It's not like
That's
I'm
easy.
going to give you some, I'm
Yeah.
going to give you three things to do, but I really don't do those things.
Yeah.
It's like we're coming at you with how we understand the world, and presenting, the way we see things and how we see it, and so we're operating under those rules typically.
Because what our clients
So-
come and talk to us about is heavy and hard.
Yeah.
And so if we have an idea about how to take care of heavy and hard and we're not doing it,
Right.
then we're not going to be very good at helping them at dealing with
bet.
the heavy and hard.
You bet. And again, and I think, I do think that those are habits that you develop as you become more wise in your self-awareness. But I also think that they are self-reinforcing. Right? And so that you get the payoff of, no,
Yeah.
this
I
is what I
remember
do.
when I gave up my lunch break for blank, or I
Yeah.
remember what happens
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
don't go to the gym.
I know what happens when I take 25 more clients
That's
a
right.
week.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think that so first of all, we're I'm not going to go as far to say that this never happens,
Yeah,
but
right.
if there's something that that I'm suggesting that you do, but I don't do that thing, most of the time it's just because I don't deal with the thing.
Right. Like
You
there's
know, like,
different self-care practices that work
right.
for different people.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
we're just
Right.
different. And so
Like,
sometimes I say things like a lot of people find relief from,
Yeah,
or,
right.
sure.
you know, here's some things that I've heard other people do that
Yeah.
have some of the similar struggles that you do. Have
Yes.
you
Yeah.
tried? Have you looked into?
Yeah.
And I'll be totally transparent. These are the things that I do. This is
Sure.
what walks me, but you're not exactly like me.
Right.
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 Exactly.
Right.
So okay, well, let's do this last one because I think
Ties it up.
it does kind of tie it up, and I think that's obviously I think people will see that's where our brains are leading us because your story really does go along with this too. So the last one is just talking about the human behind the role, being the humans that are the therapist. You know, so here's the question I have on here is what is something your clients have unknowingly taught you about being human?
Boy, I should have had time to reflect on that, Josh. That's really good.
If I had sent you the question ahead of time, maybe.
I mean, just that one is really, what have they
Well, I'll
say-
start since
Okay,
you haven't
okay,
had a chance to
yeah.
think about it. First of all, I feel it's kind of like how teachers talk about their students, like they get more out of it, way more out of it than their students are getting out of it, right? And in some ways, I feel like that my clients have taught me so much more than and helped me by by letting me help them, than I have, and so they there are a lot of times that I've had moments of self-reflection in session where I'm like, I think it's okay to not be okay sometimes, and or if I'm dealing with something in my personal life at home or something like that. A lot of times it hits at this point of doing this for 20 something years. Like I've dealt with this with a client somewhere, right? And I have the words for it, and I have I'm just a lot better equipped to manage my own life because of the hundreds of people that have come through our doors and we've gotten to work with. And I've told clients before, I said when you hear me say some things, like when I give them examples of, I said, like I know it sounds good when I say it. I said, but I've been saying these things for years. And and I have even acknowledged like that. I think when my wife and I were going through our problems, I think we had a bit of a leg up because as much as it was hard and I never want to do it again, I I had the things I knew where I was, based upon the work that I've been doing. I knew where I was. I knew where we could go, what could happen. I knew, I did not see the destructive phase of the process as the end. I saw it as this is so intellectually from the work I'd done over the years. I knew where I was and I didn't give up hope. And I think she was the same way because we've been doing, spouses go through this
Sure.
with us, right? And then on top of that, I have all these dialogues, years running through my mind, and the words of my words that I've been helping other people with are coming out of my mouth now, and so I do think it gave us a bit of an advantage in that sense. So, anyways, that was a long answer. You guys don't have to answer if you don't want to.
Will you read the question again? Just trying to
They
remember.
forgot the question.
I
It took so
know.
long. At some point, you guys were just hearing wonk 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 wonk
No, I was,
We
wonk.
were
I
listening.
remember it going unknowingly. What's the rest of the question?
What is something your clients have unknowingly taught you about being human, or
Yeah.
possibly unknowingly, like
Well,
they may not have known?
it's similar to what you were saying in some respects, Josh. But like, I remember being a new therapist and remembering it like watching a story or a movie, and having been in private practice for over 20 years now, And sometimes I stay with the same clients off and on. You know, I'm not seeing anybody for 20 years every week.
Right.
But having seen people off and on, what it's given me is this understanding of like, this too shall pass. Like this just innate calm and wisdom that even amongst the hardest things, they have unknowingly taught me through their vulnerability, through their sharing, that there is life after the bad thing. And then there's another bad thing, and there's life after that. And it's like the
Sure.
longitudinal aspect of life. They, just by virtue of being present in my life and sharing things with me over, you know, a long period of time, have just instilled this hope in me that this isn't the end, right? This may feel like the end, right? If I was a brand new therapist and somebody came in and told me that, I'm like, oh, poop, what am I doing here?
Right.
And then I see them 5 years later, and that particular thing has resolved, and then
Yeah.
it's something else. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh yeah,
This
life
too
is
shall
long,
pass.
and there's all kinds of things, and I just have to keep going, right? Just one foot in
Sure.
front of
Yeah.
the other.
Sure. Yeah. I would say, too, I was thinking about, I had this kind of moment, I don't know, semi-recently where I thought, I think I've always considered myself a pretty open-minded person, but when I look back at when I started my career to where I am now, I mean, clients have taught you that being open-minded and being compassionate, it's not just a good idea, you know, like, it's the way to be. And it has given me such a gift in all areas of my life. And it kind of connects to what you're saying, this, you know, I could never live through that. I have thought that many times with my clients. I could never do that. And they do. And then it inspires you to look around at everyone in your life, not just your practice, but in your life, and think, oh my gosh, what they've lived, or things I don't know, even about, you know, people that are semi close to you. And then you extend that out. It just makes you stay completely open-minded. And what it actually, to me, is gives me a sense of stillness,
Yeah.
because you don't have to do, you know,
Yeah.
you can't run from.
Right.
And
And you don't have to
that's
fix.
You don't have to fix it. You don't have to run. You know, you can't cure it. You didn't cause it. You can't cure it. All that stuff. But just this wider kind of, oh, I noticed that maybe the early me would have judged that person for that. And I just don't do that very
Yeah.
often.
They say, but for the grace of God, there go I, is kind of a
Yes,
phrase out of AA
sure.
that has always just really
Worked.
struck a chord with me, of like, when I engage with my clients, the just utter humanness, I am just thinking, I probably would have reacted exactly like that.
Sure.
Or,
Sure.
you did that way better than I ever would have done.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, nothing that anyone's saying is making me go,
Right.
Yeah, I was
Right.
telling the students last night. I was like, I said at some point, because some of them are were a little shocked by some of the things that they are hearing for the first time, and
Sure.
Sure.
and I said at some point, I said the things that shock me is like when someone says, you know, like someone left a voicemail in their answering machine. I'm like, answering machine? Like, really? Like that? We're still on answering machines. Like, I mean, those are the things that shock me now.
right.
at
Like,
that,
you have
know.
a flip phone?
I mean, I will completely leave
Yeah.
whatever you came in to talk about. To talk
And now
about
we're
that
talking
damn
about
answering
answering
Shocking.
machine.
Whatever
Right.
the story
Right.
is, you
And
just
so-
told me you
Yeah.
have a flip phone.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't have
Do you
a
guys ever go back and
smartphone?
watch stuff like some?
Yeah.
I'm working through some, like I'm watching
Oh,
The Good
yeah.
Wife right now. And they're like,
I
I'm
love
like flip phones. I'm like, what is
Yeah,
going?
yeah.
Are we
Look at
really?
this
It's not that
BlackBerry.
old of a show.
Not that
No.
old. Technology
You
moves
know?
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was interesting that you said, you know, about life is long, you know, and that's not the expression, right? The
No.
expression is life is short,
Yeah.
right? And
Life
then
is long, and that makes me feel better. I don't have to do it perfect every single
Yeah.
time. Like, I've got
Yeah.
several swings at the whatever sports metaphor
That's-
you want to use here. I was like,
That's
pinata,
baseball.
bat.
I guess you
Yeah.
could go with cricket,
ball,
I
something.
guess, or
Yeah,
maybe
we don't
tennis.
really
It's
know
a lot
that.
of
Swinging
time,
tennis.
and
Yeah.
life is long, and this too shall pass.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
So funny.
I know.
I think there was a joke that says, you know, when people say life is short, and it's like, well, it is the longest thing you'll ever do. And I was like, it's such a good. I mean, that's what makes jokes funny, right? There's an air of truth
Yeah.
Always.
to them, right? And there's a
Always.
little bit of absurdity to them, and so when you said that life is long, you know, I'm like, I do like that. I mean, just hearing you say it
You
was
settle
like
when you hear it.
peaceful. Like,
Yeah.
it is.
It is, because then I don't have to get so wound up about stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
As you said that, like that. Pretty wound up there.
That's
This
was
is Whitney
exactly
not being
what I
wound up,
needed,
guys.
right?
Yeah.
Like I need something to wind me back down. It's like, dude, calm it down. There's a whole
But
lot
don't
of
you
life
guid
after
think we've
that.
seen each other change over the years? Like I said, we've known each other for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, you're not as wound up as you used to be.
Really?
I think you're much calmer.
Oh, that's
You're not as much of an 8 as you once were.
hopefully.
8-ish. No.
Yeah.
Leaning
And of course,
somewhere.
Carrie and I, we've been doing, I mean, we're together every day
Yeah.
almost, you
Yeah,
know, and
yeah.
so I know she's different. I'm not different, am I?
No,
Carrie?
Josh, you're the same. Hey, you
I try to
need
keep
to,
it.
you want me to say you've changed, okay? Because that means you've grown.
Yes.
Okay.
I
good
mean,
with
I
it.
hope that we're all I don't want to be what I was when I was 23,
No.
No,
24.
me
I mean, I'm not
neither.
saying that I didn't do perfectly fine things back then.
Sure.
But
No, I
I don't
always
want to
say
live
that.
20 more years of my life without having grown from them.
Yeah.
No, I always say, thank goodness
Well,
we change our mind.
I remember someone talking about wisdom is having enough life experiences to kind of, I don't remember exactly how it was said, but in my mind it's kind of basically saying to basically you've gone through enough crap that you just don't care that much anymore
Yeah.
about,
I long to
you
be.
know,
I always
and
tell this story that I was riding on a plane one time, and there's this gentleman across the aisle from me, and if he was a day old, he was 90, right? And so he had reclined his seat the 1 full inch that the airlines allow
Luxurious, yeah.
to rest those weary bones, and he had reclined his 1 inch, and this flight attendant walks by, and she's like, "Sir, you're gonna have to put your seat forward before we take off." And he looked at her, and I was like, that man is not going to put his seat back up. And he did not. And then she walked by and tried it again to give people 1 full inch of leg room when we were.
Right.
He did not do it then. And I'm like, I
Good for
aspire
him. Yeah.
to be that gentleman someday.
Yeah.
That is peak living.
Yeah. Well, and we kind of, if we don't mind, we close on whatever you want, but I'm fine with closing on this too. But it took me back to probably one of the most impactful, the first impacting clients that I can remember was when I was doing my internship at the cancer center, and I was visiting with an 80-year-old man and his wife and he was getting chemo treatments, and he said, we're taught not to assume people are married, of course, right? So I just said, how long you guys been together? And he goes, 49 years. And he goes, yeah, I think I'm going to ask her to marry me. and I'm starting to smile. And he goes, I think it's going to last.
Aww. What a
Yes,
sweet.
love it.
it's just like, of course he's making a joke. They were married, but
Precious.
it's just such a good, precious, sweet joke. And then he told some dirty old man jokes after that
Yeah,
one.
yeah, they gotta
so.
ruin it like
Yeah,
that.
sure.
But anyways, yeah, I don't know about you guys, but this is definitely the most vulnerable conversation we've had.
You
out of-
chose.
Yeah, well,
Did you choose? You just agreed.
He agreed.
yeah. Did I?
We agreed.
Yeah.
Did you agree?
I'm all about not having to come up with
A topic.
the topics. Yeah.
I'll shoot some rando topics.
And
every
and what
so
did
often.
I texted you saying? I think because you were a little concerned. You
Yeah.
said like, is that too vulnerable? And I'm like, I think we're
think
smart
and-
enough, and we've been doing this a while that we could probably regulate our vulnerability
Yeah.
Sure.
enough to have a conversation that we're comfortable with. So
Yeah.
does that mean there are some things that we did not tell our audience? 100%.
Yes.
There are some
Yes.
things we're not
because
telling
we're
you.
still therapists.
Right. We are human beings and therapists too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so there are some things that are, as we talk about with our clients, there's a difference in secrecy and privacy.
Yep.
And you have the right to privacy. So, well, Whitney, thank you.
Thank you, Whitney.
And I did talk to Shannon and she's agreed to do an Enneagram.
It's probably gonna be a 2-hour one again, or
We
double,
probably should
double
do
hitter.
it. We'll break it up into 2 parts
Yeah.
or something.
Part one,
much.
part two.
Yeah. But we really appreciate you coming. Like I said, you just say when, and we'll figure out a way to make time for it because it's always good discussion with you. It does take me back though to our grad school days, and we had so many good conversations.
We did.
back then. So we just need to get Tyler Hoyt.
We need Tyler Hoyt, and I want to honk a couple times on my laugh, like the guffaw.
Oh yeah.
Do you
yeah.
remember the guffaw? The
Yeah.
ha!
Hey, do you still get red?
No, I don't. I
See,
mean, I'm
that's
sure I
different.
did if something would embarrass me or make me, but
Yeah.
I'm good. Nothing
been years,
embarrasses
huh?
me
Okay.
anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, knock on wood.
Yeah.
Nothing at that I'm aware of embarrasses me.
Okay.
Just for
Yeah.
context, like when you would get anxious in session.
Yes, I always told people, thank God it
Yeah.
was like early 2000s and mock turtlenecks were in,
Oh yeah.
right?
yeah.
Because I had
Cover
them
up
in
some
every
hair,
color, and I would
yeah.
just wear
Yeah.
mock turtlenecks because
Yeah.
my neck gets so flushed. and, like,
Whitney, I remember
splotchy.
sitting next to you.
Wild.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You start getting hot.
actually-
And you're like, what's?
Yeah.
It is
getting
not
hot in
even
here.
hot. Like
No, it's
I
a
literally,
stressful-
my
No, for the person
first
sitting
time
next
I
to
was
you.
ever in therapy as a client,
Yeah.
the therapist was like, "Is everything okay?" I'm like, "Do not bring up my neck."
Neck
This
is off
not
limits.
Well, I'm glad
comfortable.
it's over.
Yeah.
I would have felt bad.
Yeah, I know.
But the reason why I'm saying is I've visited with you many times. The last time I remember that happening, which I haven't seen you do therapy in a long time, but it's been years.
It's been a
Been
minute.
a while.
Yeah. But thank you for coming, and we appreciate everybody who has tuned in and supported our show. Please just take a minute. If you've made it this far, you might as well just go ahead and give us the review at this point. You know, the 5-star review,
Yeah.
or if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, and then we'll see you back next time.